federal agent?
Nobody passes me without a warrant.
He saved him.
baby.
7:12 a.m. Willow Creek Apartments, Dallas. Black SUVs screeched into the parking lot, tires smoking, doors flew open, federal agents in tactical vests poured out. Fourth graders waiting at the bus stop froze. Then someone screamed, "ICE, run!" Kids scattered in every direction. Some dove behind dumpsters. Others sprinted for apartment doors, small fists pounding. A few froze completely, tears already streaming. Parents emerged in bathrobes, phones raised, filming the chaos. Then a yellow school bus rounded the corner. "Get on the bus, now, all of you." The driver's voice boomed. 38 children changed direction mid-sprint, scrambling toward safety. They piled in backpacks flying, sneakers slipping, small hands gripping seats. Including one 10-year-old girl with long braids, searching desperately for her grandmother. Agent Brian marched toward the bus. 18-year veteran. Built like a wall. Federal agents, immigration, and customs enforcement, do not close those doors. The bus speaker crackled. Mr. Anthony's voice came through steady as steel. "Show me the warrant, or you're not touching these children. This ain't your call, we need immediate access. I got 38 kids on this bus. Armed men chasing children? Show me the warrant. You're blocking a federal operation, that's prison time. Then get a judge's signature." Brian's jaw tightened, veins bulged. Title 8 lets us question suspected aliens, no permission required. And my duty as their guardian says no. "Your duty?" Brian's voice cracked with rage. "You're a nobody driver. You shuttle rugrats. No say over us. On this bus, with these kids? I do." Brian slammed his fist against the glass, boom, boom, boom. Inside kids jumped, small faces pressed against windows. "You're shielding an illegal. Open this door now." "I'm shielding 38 from strangers without paperwork, badges or documents, not warrants. 30 seconds or we breach." Mr. Anthony's hand moved to the master lock. Click. Hydraulic hiss, doors sealed tight. "That's assault on a federal officer." I locked a door. 6 minutes of fury. Cameras rolling. Drones overhead. The standoff exploded across every platform within the hour. ICE agents had stormed a school bus stop in a rundown apartment complex, sending kids running in terror. The driver stood his ground. What followed was a heart-pounding standoff that erupted into a federal courtroom and ended with a revelation that forced a judge to choose between his career and his own daughter's life. 3 days later. Federal courthouse. Downtown Dallas. Judge Harlan Wright entered chambers, opened the case file, and froze. Maya Wright, his daughter's name. Right there on the witness list. That 10-year-old girl with the braids crying for her dad through the bus window was his. Now he had to make an impossible choice, recuse himself and abandon justice, or preside over the case and risk everything he'd built. If you're fired up about everyday folks fighting back against overreach, smash that like button and comment your city below. First-timers, subscribe now. Let's dive in. If you're fired up about everyday folks fighting back against overreach, smash that like button and comment your city below. First-timers, subscribe now. Let's dive in. The chaos erupted at 7:12 in the morning in the shadows of the Willow Creek Apartments, a forgotten corner of Dallas where chain-link fences sagged under rust and time, where potholes scarred the asphalt, lots like old wounds that the city had stopped pretending to care about. Graffiti tagged the dumpsters in faded spray paint. Weeds pushed through cracks in the sidewalk. The kind of place where politicians never visited except during election years, where promises came easy and follow-through never came at all. Mr. Marcus Anthony had driven Route 8 for 14 years, same cracked sidewalks, same weary parents waving from doorways in bathrobes and work uniforms, same chorus of young voices boarding with backpacks and dreams too fragile for the world waiting beyond these blocks. He knew every bump in the road, could navigate them in his sleep. He knew every face at every stop, knew which kids needed extra time in the mornings, which ones came to school hungry, which ones carried bruises they wouldn't talk about. He carried the quiet weight of ferrying futures through a city that barely noticed him, a ghost in a yellow bus moving through streets that had long ago stopped seeing the people who kept them running. His route ran like clockwork. Willow Creek at 7:15, Maple Gardens at 7:22, Lincoln Terrace at 7:31. 14 years without a single accident, without a single complaint that mattered, without a single moment of recognition. He had been 3 blocks away, stopped at a red light, checking his mirrors out of habit, when the black SUVs descended on Willow Creek like wolves on a fold. The vehicles came in fast and hard. No lights, no sirens, no warning, Just the screech of tires and the acrid smell of burning rubber as they carved tight arcs across the parking lot where 38 children waited under a rusted shelter that provided shade but little else. The SUVs were black, government issue, windows tinted so dark you couldn't see the faces inside until the doors flew open and agents piled out in tactical vests that said police in yellow letters across the back, badges glinting like accusations under the early sun that was just beginning to burn off the morning fog. Flares hit the ground with metallic clinks, sparks flying like tiny fireworks, creating a perimeter that felt more like a military operation than law enforcement. The children 4th and 5th graders, ages 9 to 11, innocent as dawn and twice as fragile, froze for half a heartbeat. That moment of paralysis before the brain catches up to the body's terror, before instinct overrides confusion. In that frozen second, they were still just kids waiting for a school bus, backpacks on shoulders, lunches in hand, thinking about spelling tests and recess and whether they'd remembered their library books. Then someone screamed, "Ice, run!" The panic detonated like a bomb, the paralysis shattered, little ones scattered like leaves in a sudden storm, survival instinct kicking in with a force that would haunt them in nightmares for months to come. Some darted behind rusted dumpsters that smelled of rot and forgotten trash, pressing themselves flat against corrugated metal. Others raced toward apartment doors, small fists pounding, voices calling for mothers and fathers who were already at work or still sleeping after night shifts. A few froze completely, bodies locked with fear, tears streaming down faces too young to understand but old enough to know it was wrong. Among those running, Maya Wright, 10 years old, long braids flying behind her like dark ribbons. She wore a pink backpack with a unicorn keychain bouncing against the zipper, jeans with flowers embroidered on the pockets, and sneakers that lit up when she ran. Her mother worked night shifts at Presbyterian Hospital, 12-hour stretches where she saved lives while her daughter slept. Her grandmother, who lived in the Willow Creek complex, watched Maya in the mornings before school. Her father, federal judge Harlan Wright, presiding judge of the Northern District of Texas, had no idea as he sat in chambers reviewing case files that his daughter was about to become part of a case that would land on his desk. Traffic halted on the adjacent street, horns blaring, drivers leaning out windows to film, some getting out entirely for better angles. Mr. Anthony rounded the corner in his yellow school bus and saw the pandemonium unfold. His heart kicked against his ribs, but his hands remained steady on the wheel, 14 years of muscle memory keeping him anchored. He processed the scene in seconds. Federal agents in tactical gear, scattered children running in pure terror, no coordination with the school district. No police presence for crowd control, just armed strangers pursuing terrified kids through a residential area. He made his choice in the space between one heartbeat and the next. The bus screeched to a halt at the curb, air brakes hissing. He threw open the doors and stood at the top step, one hand gripping the support rail, the other reaching for the external speaker. "Get on the bus. Now, all of you." The command cut through the chaos. Children changed direction mid-sprint, recognizing the voice they heard every morning, the yellow fortress they trusted. They scrambled toward him in a chaotic flood, some limping, some sobbing, all desperate for safety. They piled on, backpacks bouncing, sneakers slipping on the steps, small hands gripping seatbacks for balance. Maya Wright was among them, chest heaving, tears streaming as she threw herself into the 4th-row seat and pressed her face against the window, searching for her grandmother. Mr. Anthony counted faces in his mirror, cross-checking against the mental roster he'd carried for 14 years. Maria Gonzalez, check. Carlos Mendoza, check. The Johnson twins from apartment 4B, check. Maya Wright, whose father he'd never met but whose name he knew from the morning sign-in sheets, check. Jamal Washington with the Spider-Man backpack his mother had saved 3 months to buy, check. 38 total, all accounted for, all inside, all under his protection now whether the law agreed or not. Agent Brian, a grizzled 18-year veteran with immigration and customs enforcement, built like a wall and twice as unyielding. His face weathered from years in the sun and his eyes hidden behind reflective sunglasses, broke from his pursuit and marched toward the bus, his team flanking him in tactical formation. He moved with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no by a civilian, someone whose badge had always been enough. He reached the door just as the last child stumbled aboard, a small boy with a scraped knee leaving a thin trail of blood on the steps. Federal agents, immigration and customs enforcement do not close those doors. His voice carried the weight of authority, the assumption of compliance. Mr. Anthony stood at the top step, facing the agent through the glass. "We have intelligence pointing to an undocumented minor in this group. We need immediate access for detention." The intercom crackled. "Gonna need paperwork before anyone steps foot here." Brian's jaw tightened. "Paperwork? This is federal business. Move aside." 38 children on my bus. Armed men chasing kids? Show me the warrant. We're the damn authority. Do you speak the law? Crystal clear. Warrant, please. Brian laughed, cold and sharp. No warrant needed for immigration holds. This is administrative enforcement. Then we've got an issue. I'm not letting you on. Another agent whispered to Brian, but he shrugged it off, leaning closer to the door. Listen good, driver. You're blocking a federal operation that's felony territory. Prison. I hear you want these kids. Not without a judge's sign-off. You arrogant. Brian bit back the words, veins bulging. Title 8 lets us question suspected aliens. No permission required. And my duty as their guardian says no. Your duty? Brian's voice cracked with disbelief. You're a nobody driver. You shuttle rugrats. No say over us. On this bus, with these kids? I do. Brian pounded the door. Boom, 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 each strike making the children jump. Maya Wright pressed against the window, searching for her grandmother in the gathering crowd, her small face streaked with tears. You're shielding an illegal, a kid who shouldn't be here. I'm shielding 38 from gun-toting strangers without documents. Badges are documents, not warrants. Damn you. Brian whirled, then spun back. 30 seconds or we breach. Mr. Anthony's finger found the master lock button. The doors hissed, then clicked into place with mechanical finality. He returned to the driver's seat, hands resting on the wheel, eyes forward. Brian went red from collar to hairline. That's assault on a federal officer. I locked a door. Defying orders is battery. No contact. Brian roared across the lot. Think you can barricade yourself and win? I'm staying put till warrant or you back off. Another agent grabbed a breaching tool from the SUV, a hydraulic pry bar. Brian nodded. Pry it open. Mr. Anthony's voice boomed through the external speaker, calm as morning coffee. Gonna smash into a kid-filled bus with cameras rolling? Brian glanced up. Drones whirred overhead. Neighbors filmed from windows and balconies. News helicopters thumped in the distance, closing fast. He grabbed his radio. Dispatch, obstruction active. Driver sealed bus with minors inside, non-compliant. Need breach authorization. The radio crackled. Standby legal review required. Highway risk, minors present, heavy witness count. Brian glared at the bus, sweat beading despite the cool morning. Hear that? Charges stacking. Every tick adds years. Mr. Anthony remained silent. Behind him, kids sobbed. Maya whispered to the girl beside her, I want my dad. He would fix this. He's a judge. Little Carlos, third row back, clutched his backpack. The 10-year-old boy whose presence had triggered this operation. He understood, somehow, that the men outside wanted him specifically. You're scaring them. Be a man, comply. Still nothing. Name? Another agent checked a clipboard. Marcus Anthony. Brian lifted the megaphone. Marcus Anthony. You're under arrest for federal obstruction. We'll drag you out, strip your job, your life. 4 minutes in. Already going viral. The radio crackled again. Caution advised. Media heavy. Recommend school coordination first. Brian cursed, then lowered his voice. Anthony, you're hiding something. Illegal yourself? Family? Silence from the bus. Or just dumb. But we'll win. We'll get that boy. And you'll rot. Mr. Anthony hit the intercom one final time. 38 kids here. My job, get them home safe. You want on? Get presidential sign-off. Till then, doors stay shut. Brian stared at the defiant driver, at terrified faces, at cameras rolling. 6 minutes total. By noon, footage would be everywhere. 6 minutes that would replay in a federal courtroom presided over by a judge who would discover his own daughter had been on that bus. But now, Brian signaled with a sharp chop. Breach. The hydraulic tools whirred. Kids shrieked. Mr. Anthony sat unmoved as the doors were forced open. Hands yanked him from his seat. Metal cuffs snapped around his wrists. Brian leaned close. Worth it? Mr. Anthony said nothing. He was hauled to the van while parents swarmed, shouting, filming. Little Carlos was detained, disappearing into an SUV. Maya's grandmother pushed through the crowd, grabbed her granddaughter as she stumbled off the bus, held her tight while she sobbed. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands. Federal Judge Harlan Wright answered on the second ring. Harlan, it's Mom. There's been an incident. Maya's okay, but ICE just raided the bus stop. They arrested the driver. Maya was on the bus. You need to come now. The line went dead as Wright was already moving, not knowing yet that this would become his case. The showdown was over. The true tale was starting. Behind the footage lay history, 14 years of being called the ghost driver. Humiliated, skimped paychecks, routes dumped on him. Once assaulted, reported, dismissed, part of the job. So he endured. And in 2 days, Wright would open his case folder and see his daughter's name among the witnesses. 3 days later, the federal courthouse buzzed. Media trucks clogged downtown Dallas. The gallery was packed, Route 8 parents, drivers in uniform, strangers drawn by viral footage that had exploded to 200 million views. Mr. Anthony entered at 8:50, flanked by security. Miss Elena Vargas, his court-appointed defender, walked beside him sharp-eyed despite exhaustion. She'd taken his case pro bono. Judge Harlan Wright entered at 9 sharp, mid-40s, precise, carved from impossible decisions. But today, tension showed. A man walking a tightrope between duty and love. The gallery murmured. His daughter had been on that bus. Wright addressed it head-on. Before we proceed, I must disclose, my daughter, Maya Wright, was among the children on the bus. She has provided a witness statement. Both parties were notified and declined to move for my recusal. He paused. Standard procedure suggests I step aside. However, both parties have waived objection. I believe my perspective, as both federal judge and father, whose child experienced this, may serve justice. Either party may reconsider at any point. The prosecutor stood. No objection, Your Honor. Miss Vargas, the defense as well. Let the record reflect consent. Proceed. Charges read, obstruction, interference, endangerment, heavy sentences possible. Agent Bryan took the stand first, crisp in dress uniform. He recounted the operation, credible intelligence, tactical approach, driver interference. Routine enforcement derailed by unreasonable defiance. Then the audio played. 6 raw minutes. Bryan's threats booming. Mr. Anthony's calm refusals. Children sobbing. Maya's voice barely audible. I want my dad. Judge Wright's jaw tightened. Agent Bryan, did the driver's actions constitute a hazard? They did. Refusal to comply created volatility. Cooperation would have prevented trauma. Vargas cross-examined sharply. How many operations at school bus stops in your career? This was the first. Did you coordinate with the school district? We assessed flight risk. For children at a fixed route? You drew weapons within 12 seconds? Prepared for resistance. Did Mr. Anthony threaten you? He refused orders. Yes or no? No. Did he raise his voice, leave his seat? No. Did the children pose threats? Pause. He was shielding the target. Vargas played audio. You're shielding an illegal. Professional conduct? Operational duress. No further questions. Defense witnesses followed. A mother took the stand, her voice breaking as she described her daughter's nightmares running from men with guns, strangers shouting commands she didn't understand. The girl wouldn't board buses anymore, refused to go near the stop where she'd played for years. She woke screaming 3 nights a week, calling for Mr. Anthony because he was the only adult who had protected her that morning. But she knows Mr. Anthony protected her. That's the only reason she still feels safe anywhere. A public safety expert testified next, clinical and devastating. Operations like this, conducted without coordination in civilian areas populated by minors, risked significant casualties, both physical and psychological. He cited statistics, injury rates during chaotic immigration enforcement actions, psychological trauma markers in children exposed to armed pursuits, escalation probabilities when civilians intervene to protect minors, every number an indictment of the tactical choices made that morning. The principal, 14 flawless years. Extras beyond duty, buying coats, spotting abuse, waiting for late parents. She described how Mr. Anthony would show up to birthday parties when no other adults could attend, how he'd make weekend calls to check on sick students, how he'd once driven to the hospital on his day off just to sit with a child who'd been in an accident and whose parents couldn't get off work, small acts that added up to a life of care. Parents testified, blankets under seats for cold mornings, calls when kids seemed off, noticing what others missed because he actually looked at children instead of through them. One mother described how he'd waited 45 minutes in the rain for her son when she was stuck in traffic, refusing to mark him absent, refusing to leave a child alone. One father broke completely. My deaf daughter, he learned sign language in the first week, simple signs for good morning, seatbelt, almost home, you're safe. When she had meltdowns on the bus, overwhelmed by the noise of 36 children, he would pull over safely, crouch beside her seat, and sign patience until she calmed. No training required it. No policy demanded it. He simply saw a child who needed something he could give, so he learned how to give it. The gallery wept. Then Maya Wright took the stand. Small, solemn in her school uniform, her hands folded in her lap like she'd been taught. Judge Wright's knuckles whitened as he gripped the bench. The prosecutor half rose then sat back down, remembering the waiver both parties had signed. Miss Vargas approached gently, her voice soft. Maya, can you tell us what you remember from that morning? The girl's voice was quiet but clear, each word carefully chosen. The men came in cars. Big black cars. They were yelling really loud. Everyone started running because we were scared. I ran toward Grandma's apartment, but I didn't know if the door would open in time. Then Mr. Anthony's bus came around the corner and he yelled for us to get on. So I did. I ran as fast as I could. What happened after you got on the bus? Maya's hands tightened in her lap. The men wanted to come on the bus, but Mr. Anthony said no. They kept yelling and hitting the door really hard. Everyone was crying. Some kids were hiding under the seats. I wanted my dad because he always makes things okay. But Mr. Anthony told us we were safe. He said nobody was going to hurt us. Did you believe him? Yes. The answer came without hesitation. Mr. Anthony never lies to us. He always tells us when we're safe. Her voice broke slightly on the last word. Judge Wright closed his eyes, his jaw working. Did you feel safe with Mr. Anthony that morning? Yes. He always makes sure we're safe. Every single day. Even when those men were trying to get in. Wright sat in silence. Then spoke, voice rough with controlled emotion. I've seen law done right and wrong. This was wrong from the first moment. You descended on children like enemy combatants. Created terror where there should have been procedure. You now called a child illegal on camera. When a driver demanded documentation, you responded with threats. He turned to Mr. Anthony. You remained calm. Protected children, including my daughter, when authority forgot its duty. You are not a criminal, sir. His voice caught. You are a hero. Gavel down. All charges dismissed. I'm personally recommending Mr. Marcus Anthony for the Presidential Citizens Medal. The gallery erupted. Wright held up his hand. One more thing. Mr. Anthony, my daughter came home terrified. But safe. Because of you. I cannot express. He stopped, composed himself. The court thanks you. Adjourned. He exited quickly before emotion broke through. Applause rolled like thunder. Mr. Anthony stood, nodding to Vargas, to the gallery. No speeches. Just quiet acknowledgement. Outside, Wright stood in chambers, staring at the crowd on courthouse steps. His clerk knocked. Your daughter is here. Maya entered with her grandmother. Wright knelt to her level. Are you okay? I'm okay, Daddy. Mr. Anthony kept us safe. I know, sweetheart. Are you giving him a medal? Yes. A very important one. Good, he deserves it. Wright pulled her close, holding on longer than necessary, feeling the weight of what could have happened. That evening, footage exploded across every platform. 250 million views by midnight, climbing steadily as the story spread from Dallas to New York to London to Tokyo. Now with a new dimension that captured imaginations, a judge forced to preside over a case involving his own daughter's safety, delivering justice despite personal stakes that could have destroyed his career. News anchors debated the ethics. Legal scholars analyzed the precedent. But most people just watched the footage of 38 children running in terror, then boarding a yellow bus driven by a man who refused to let fear win. Responses flooded in. Parents across the country tagged their children's bus drivers with thank you messages. Former students shared decades-old stories of drivers who'd been kind when no one else was. Children drew pictures of yellow buses and heroes without capes. Investigators uncovered the pattern. 14 years of quiet interventions. Abuse reports leading to rescues. Scholarships from meager paychecks. Anonymous donations traced to his account. Media camped outside. He waved them away politely. I drive a bus. That's the job. Monday, 5 a.m., the depot. Colleagues who'd ignored him stood and clapped. He nodded graciously. Children boarded reverently at 7:15 now with police security. Maya handed him a drawing, yellow bus, stick figures safe inside, caped figure at the wheel. He taped it to the dashboard. Carlos whispered, thank you. Mirror glance. Welcome. Seatbelt. Schedule to keep. Mirror. The route proceeded. Waves from storefronts. Honks from cars. A billboard, thank you, Mr. Anthony. Society began noticing the ignored crossing guards, cafeteria workers, custodians, pillars holding everything up. 4 weeks later, White House ceremony, Mr. Anthony in his polo, shaking the president's hand, thanking Route 8's children by name. By sunset, back in Dallas, pondering tomorrow's rain. The medal went in a drawer. The work continued. Wright attended with Maya. When Anthony mentioned her name among those he'd protected, Wright's eyes filled. Maya squeezed his hand. See, Daddy? I told you he was a hero. You were right, sweetheart, absolutely right. The bus engine cooled as Anthony completed inspection. He locked doors, pocketed keys, walked into dusk. The vulnerable would need him at 7:12. The work continued regardless of whether anyone watched. And in federal chambers, Wright kept a crayon drawing in his desk, his daughter's artwork showing a yellow bus and the man who saved her when the law forgot to.
If you like this video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next story. Share this video with someone who would appreciate it, and let's keep building this community together. And before you go, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what stood out to you the most. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next.